Bienvenidos. We are so excited to be here today during Hispanic Heritage Month. It's an exciting time for all our communities. My name is Joe Hearn. I am with the City of Deltona at the beautiful center at Deltona, where the Hispanic Chamber holds many of their events, from their Latina Awards to all kinds of great events like their Healthcare Legacy. We are excited to be here today on behalf of the Volusia Hispanic Chamber to talk about all the great things during Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm honored to be here with two very, very special guests. One, we have a very big community servant, a very proud Hispanic in our community, and that is our Commissioner, Victor Ramos. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We also have one of our fabulous business partners at the Volusia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Jackie Adames with Vitas.
Good morning, Joe.
It's great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here. I know how passionate you are about our community. I know how passionate you are about your heritage, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So first, let's talk about Esperanza, hope. That is the theme this year for Hispanic Heritage Month. And we are hopeful that all of the Hispanics in the community, everybody in the community can get out and really experience the culture and all the wonderful things that come with our Hispanic community that we're proud of. With that said, let's talk to each of you about why Hispanic Heritage Month is so important. So, Commissioner Ramos, why is it so important?
You know, to me, it's important just because we're talking about our culture, our heritage, and it's important that sometimes we get outside of our own boxes and express this and showcase who we are to our neighbors, so that we can experience the beauty of being a Latino. So I enjoy the opportunity. Obviously, we have a month to highlight it, but for me, it's a 12-month thing.
That's how it should be.
Yes.
And let's talk about where you're from. Where is your heritage from?
From Puerto Rico.
Right.
Both my parents, my dad and my mom, from Puerto Rico. I born and raised in Miami, but definitely that Puerto Rican blood is in me, and I enjoy the opportunity to be able to express that of my culture and what it brings. Being a Puerto Rican, too many times it's three kind of cultures that are infused in, and that's African, the Taino Indian, and Spain. So I think it's, you know, I used this quote once from Forrest Gump. Puerto Ricans are like a box of chocolate. They come in every size, shape, and color. And I think that's the reality. And sometimes people are surprised when they say, you don't look Puerto Rican. And I say, well, what is a Puerto Rican supposed to look like? But I think that's a great opportunity for this month to be able to showcase that, the diversity that we have within our Latino community.
Absolutely. And Jackie, tell me about you. Where is your heritage from?
Well, Joe, my father is from Puerto Rico, and my mother is from Peru. I was born in New York, yes. So, and this month is very important to me because this Hispanic Heritage Month, well, that is a piece of me, right? This makes up me, and not just me, but we are in this country one of the largest ethnic groups that are growing. So how amazing to have a whole month to celebrate here in America.
I know, with great food, great entertainment, yes, great dance, everything.
Absolutely.
So coming from the culture of first of all, you know, we're blessed to be in such an amazing, diverse community as Deltona. I've met so many, even just on the Hispanic Chamber board, we've got someone from Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, Mexico, such a broad. Coming from such a multicultural community as Miami, you know, I lived in Coconut Grove for a little bit, and they know how to celebrate for sure. What's different about that culture there and the culture here in Deltona? And do you see some similarities? Do you see some of that transition no matter where they go?
You know, I see that transition growing, and I'm going to use kind of like what Jackie says in the aspect of our numbers. You know, we're the fastest growing minority throughout the United States, and I think one of the things about us, we move quite often. So I'm starting to see a lot of that here in Volusia County. Just our census alone shows it. Here in Deltona, I think we're about 33% Latino community. And within that Latino community, at first when you came here, majority Puerto Rican, but we're starting to see a lot of other different ethnicities that are coming into the community. But when you talk about Miami, that's just a whole different ballgame. The beauty of Miami could be sometimes that you are literally can cross the street and you're in a whole different environment just because of the different cultures that we have in Miami. And, you know, a lot of times we always say, you know, America the melting pot, but for me, I think it's America the beef stew. Yeah. When we talk about the difference within our Latino community, you know, she mentioned, you know, her mom is from Peru, her dad's Puerto Rican, and you know, there's so many differences even between Puerto Rican and Cubans. While you think there's so much similarities, there's also so much differences that we're bringing to the table. And to me, it's about bringing that spice, you know, ese ingrediente to the table that we see it in sports. For example, not too long ago, there was an article about our Latino baseball players. That I think sometimes people think that they're just showcasing, but it's just that love for the game and that passion that that comes out. And sometimes it's misunderstood. And I think these are great opportunities for us to be better understood by everyone, to showcase that stuff. That it's not necessarily I'm raising my voice because I'm mad. It's just I'm passionate about it. And I think that's something that's in our blood. But definitely, you know, we're not Miami. I don't know that any place can be Miami, but I definitely see the changes here in Volusia County and seeing the growth of our community coming from all sides. I think we were getting a lot of retires from up north, but I think you're getting a lot of folks from all over the place, diversified, education-wise, and being involved more politically as well. And I think, you know, we're here and we're becoming part of the community. I think it's important. Especially for this month, but throughout the year to be able to carry that flag.
Absolutely, and you brought up a good point about all the different cultures. You know, growing up, you know, as a gringo, my grandfather is from Spain and my grandmother is from Spain. Great-grandfather and his daughter is from Spain, my grandmother. But, you know, growing up, I think a lot of people, the mindset, especially for a gringo, you know, they think, oh, it's just Puerto Ricans and Cubans. Yes. And they don't realize the depth of the Hispanic community. Yes. The depth is just incredible and so enriching. And all their cultures and customs are not necessarily exactly the same. They're different. You know, their foods are a little different. There's things that are engaged in their cooking that's the same, but for the most part, it's very different. And for you, and coming from New York, and then coming here, what difference to you? Are you seeing that culture be more embraced here as you did as much as a child in New York?
Right. So I relocated to Florida as a child, actually. And I actually relocated to Port Orange, Florida. And when I went to school, I could count the kids that were olive-skinned like myself and had dark black hair. There was probably like 2 or 3 of us. There wasn't a really big Spanish Hispanic community back then in the late 1980s. So I can see how this has really changed now. But still, you know, I think we still have some growth to do out on that side. I'd say West Volusia has more of the Hispanic population, but I do see more than I did back then in the 1980s. Yeah. Yeah,
and you know, I would agree with that. You know, because it was you know, I was always I drifted towards the Hispanic community because I grew up in an Italian, Spanish, gringo family, but we had a lot of culture. You know, we had a lot of traditions that the Hispanic community seems to have. Yes. Eating with your family, breaking bread with your family, just values that are just a little different. Right. Not that anyone's worse or better, it's just a little bit different. But I embraced it because it was just awesome. You know, it was just a great part of my upbringing. Yeah. You know, one of the things with my grandfather from Spain, I grew up playing dominoes all the time. So, you know, sometimes I'll see you do a post or I'll see some pictures of the dominoes here locally, and it's all of these Hispanic men playing dominoes. I just think that's amazing. And I love that it's right here in our city.
And we have women as well, which is quite interesting. Wow. And it's one of those things I always kind of like said is just keeping our tradition alive. And there's just something about just playing dominoes. You kind of like, it's just having fun, and it's a family-oriented. We have all types of folks here, and even Americans are coming in and saying, hey, what's going on here? And we enjoy it. So domino is one of those things that, same thing with softball. You know, we have a senior softball league here in Volusia County, and I want to say almost 80% of them are Latinos. Wow. And again, it's something about keeping our traditions and our culture alive through sports and through things that we do.
Sure. Yeah. And how, you know, the Hispanic community is so welcoming. Always, whatever event they have, whatever, you go to somebody's house, they're so welcoming. Where does that come from? Like, where is it just embedded in you? Is it generational? Clearly, but it's, you know, it's just a very welcoming, you know, eat, you know, and
it's definitely passed down.
And why do you say that?
And we learned that from, you know, our mother, then their grandmother, and it's just like that very given, like, come here. Like the first time I went to Puerto Rico, and I was in my early 20s, every house I stopped at, they were so happy to finally meet me, and they were so giving and loving, and they all had a cup of coffee for me, and I was like, wow, how much more can I eat going up this mountain? I had to pace myself and just take a few sips, but that was just amazing, and that's really how we are, and that's what makes us so kind and giving. You know, we pass that on, and we will teach our kids the same thing. So it's just something that's in us, just passed down.
Amazing.
And God forgive you. God forbid you don't take whatever they're offering, because then you feel like you're disrespecting.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things. No. You know, it's like anyone who comes to my mom's house. My mom is constantly, quiere esto, tú quieres aquello, quiere café, quiere esto. You know, it's just that, and I'm like, Mom, relax, it's okay. But it's something that's in us, and I think that's a welcoming part of us that we have. And sometimes it takes some getting used to be quite honest with you. You know, I know we're in a pandemic, and part of our culture is always, you know, hugging and touching.
The struggle's been real.
And then sometimes, you know, you have to be careful, because not everybody's used to that. It's like, you know, you want your space, but for us, it's just one of those things that we respect you. We just want you to know, hey, you're welcome. And that's our way of, you know, you're welcome, and we offer whatever we can for you.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge part of the culture. You know, my grandmother, again, back to her, I always default to her, but, you know, from Spain, I remember stories as a child when her and my grandfather would go to Spain and visit. And she said, my cousin Manolita, who eventually came here to the States, but she always said we'd go there and we would know no family there. And we would be sent to 20 houses. The whole trip were there. And everybody would treat us like we were brothers and sisters. Yes. So, you know, it's just, it's an amazing culture, amazing culture. How do you celebrate? How do you celebrate with your family?
Well, by sharing with them about my roots, my heritage, you know, talking about my grandmother, grandfather, my experiences in Puerto Rico. They have not yet been to Puerto Rico, but I am going to take them. And personally, I need to go to Peru. But even through my mom celebrates by telling me her story, her personal story, how she came here, about her family. And so, you know, I think just sharing our story, how we got here, because that speaks high, you know, who we are, why we're here, and what makes us. So definitely that's one way to celebrate. Also, I find that during Hispanic Heritage Month, probably just visiting the local Spanish restaurant businesses, eating some Spanish food,
Great
you know,
idea.
and teaching that, you know, to my children. I think supporting the Spanish community, the Hispanic community is huge. And yeah, and also I also wear some cute attire that, you know, has Hispanic or, you know, Buenas Vibras hats, you know, good vibes.
And do people ask you questions about your
Yeah,
attire?
sometimes they ask me, oh, what does that say and why are you wearing that? So when I tell them why, I'm like, I'm really celebrating my culture this month. So yeah,
fantastic.
that's how I celebrate.
And one of the things that I would add to that is the language. You know, I made it a point with my nieces is not to not learn English, but I think it's important that we keep our Spanish. I think if you lose your language, you lose your culture. So to me, it's important that, you know, we take that time to be able to speak our language, not being disrespectful to anyone, but I think that's part of who we are. And too many times we want to assimilate so much that we kind of like lose ourselves. So for me, that's an important part when I speak to anyone who's Latino. Hey, you know, I try to speak some words with them in Spanish because I think that is that connection. I go places and sometimes the minute I say, hola, ¿cómo está? It's like the door's open. You know, it's a whole different environment because you quickly connect with language. I know for myself, even in Miami, I had some Creole. Why? Because there's a Haitian community, and when you can talk the language, it's just amazing. So to me, I think it's important that as Latinos, we keep our language alive.
Sure. And how do you decipher the different dialects from the different countries? So
Oh, Lord.
Is it easy? Can you tell on the spot, oh, they're not from Puerto Rico, they must be from South America? How do you know differently?
I would say I was much better when I was in Miami just because you heard a lot of, so I would be able to detect a Cuban between a Puerto Rican just because of there's certain words or mannerisms as well. Not the hand gestures because we all use that, but there's certain things that they would say that you can decipher and say, okay, this person. Or, for example, going to Puerto Rico, they can tell you're not from Puerto Rico. You're coming from the mainland, just because, even though you're speaking the Spanish, but there's just something on how you speak it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yes, you do learn to have that ear to pick up.
Yeah, but understanding is still, comprehending is no
yes,
problem.
no problem. You can
Yeah,
still
it's all
understand.
general.
Yes.
Yeah, for the most part, it's all general. There might be one or two words. For example, the Cuban community uses a word that when I first heard it, I was like, shh, don't say that. because for me it's something bad. But I think you start hearing and you start realizing where it's coming from and the nature of it. Kind of like with Puerto Ricans, we're always using ay bendito. So ay bendito can mean lots of things. It can be great, it can be bad, but I think in Peru
Could
there's
be a blessing.
there's certain words or buzzwords that culture uses, and sometimes for me it's learning those buzzwords so you can connect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you talk about Miami, and you talk about New York, and the food and the coffee. I mean, one thing I remember in Miami is just the café con leche. I mean, that was like the best. So I was elated when one of our business members here, El Coqui, right here in Deltona, someone took me there once and they said, "Oh, meet one of our members for the Hispanic Chamber," and oh my gosh, it just brought back so many amazing memories, and it's great to have that. And I tell you what else I was impressed with, we have a wonderful Hispanic grocery store here in Deltona, Unidos, and it is phenomenal. Yes. I mean, the different foods they're cooking, what an operation they have. Really impressive.
And there's nothing like a café con leche. I have to tell you, there is nothing that can compare
Delicious.
to that. At one point, I would have to go up to Chica's, which is in the land, just to get my coffee. But I have to tell you, glad that Coqui Bakery is here. And again, there's just something about that coffee.
It's
amazing.
Totally different. Amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. I'm addicted to it now, of course, because it's absolutely amazing, and they do a great job. But talking about food, what's your favorite food? Like, there's so many wonderful foods in your culture. What is your favorite? What would you say is your favorite go-to meal or favorite meal as a family that you would break bread with? What would that be?
I love so many different Latin foods, not just from Peru or Puerto Rico, where my parents are from. They're both wonderful cooks. So I always look forward to eat with them. They make wonderful ceviche. Ooh. I will have that any day.
Which is very Peruvian.
Yeah. And notice that I say what they make because I'm not really the best cook, but I have the tongue for the...
It's not in your blood?
Yeah. Somehow that skipped me.
Yeah.
But I still have those taste buds for that Latin-rich food that's so yummy and amazing. So I love the ceviche. Okay. I love pernil. And arroz con gandules, tostones, all that Latin food. Yeah, I can eat it every day.
Very nice. And for you?
And talk about that in appetizers, for example. Una alcapurria, un bacalaíto. Those are things that it takes you back. And it's quite nice to have some of our food trucks in the area that do provide this.
It's amazing.
And there's times that I have that and I'm like, I need an alcapurria, so I know where to go and get it. And arroz con gandules, pernil. For me, the go-to meal is mofongo, mofongo with carne frita, which is quite interesting. And we're moving into this time now of festivity. So one of the things that you'll probably get a lot, especially in the Puerto Rican community, but I think it's spread out, is coquito. Which is a drink made in Puerto Rico. And it's so at this point in time, pasteles, coquito, these are all the things that start happening now. So it's exciting, and it doesn't take much for us to want to celebrate, to be quite honest with you.
Tell the gringos out there what mofongo is.
Oh, mofongo. So mofongo, it's kind of like, it's plantain. It's kind of like, it's smashed. Well, think of totones. In that aspect, you smash it, and then people do a little bit different. Some put a little bit of garlic, and then you put pork grinds on it, and then the typical one has always been mofongo con carne frita, pernil, but now you can get it with shrimp and chicken, all the type of things. And go visit one of our food trucks in the area; they have them.
Coquito, can you buy coquito, or is that just something every family heritage has their own recipe?
I think for the most part it's always been that way, but I believe Bacardi last year came out with a bottle of coquito.
Good for them.
It's just never the same. That's that homemade. But definitely, I'm sure you can find someone who will provide a bottle of coquito for you.
Sure.
I'll find you one, Joe.
It's amazing.
All right.
It's amazing.
And it's just one of those things. A lot of people, what's that drink? Like eggnog.
Yeah.
People try to compare it to eggnog, but it's not eggnog. But I think it's just one way. Quick way, kind of like with us here in Deltona. Where do you live? Central Florida. If you get too much into it, so coquito is kind of like the eggnog, but totally different. And it's just, if people do it right, it's just something nice and smooth that sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Now that I have a recipe for at home, so I can make
that, but not the other food.
Correct.
And tell me something else too, and it's probably just falls back to other cultures too, but rice and beans are such a critical part. I grew up, my two best friends growing up were Amore and Adele Ruiz from Puerto Rico, And I mean, I ate beans and rice every day because they had it for me every day, and chicharrones, and all kinds of good food. But I also noticed in the Hispanic culture that it might be red beans for you, and it might be black beans for Ecuador, or black beans for Costa Rica. How did that all become your traditional side dish? You talk about American, you talk about meat and potatoes. You talk about that. But when you think of the Latin culture, you think of rice and beans. Right. Many times I do, and they'll have the best meal out there, and I just want to go to the rice and beans because they taste so good.
A little bean competition there.
I'll tell you a quick funny story about that. Growing up, you're right. Rice and beans is always there, and you're going to have a mixture of meat. But rice and beans, arroz con habichuela, it's always going to be there. It got to the point where I'm like, man, I'm tired of this. I did an internship for 6 weeks in D.C.
My friends told me that too.
And in 2 weeks up in D.C., I was like, okay, I need to find arroz con habichuela. And there was a group of us, we're all Latino, and we found somewhere in Georgetown so we made it a point every week to go there. So it's just one of those things that, yes, arroz con habichuela is something that you just have to have.
Yeah. And tell me, in your culture, dance is important. We do a Latin night at the center, and I mean, we just have a wonderful turnout. But when people get together, it's like embracing. It's like they're celebrating every day. It's like they're just happy. And why is that? Why is that?
I just think it's part of the culture. It's just who we are. It's the combination of cultures that we have. I go back to Puerto Rico, having African in us. That beat's already in us. Sure. The Spaniard, so you have all these things that, and it doesn't take much. Even if you don't know how to dance, you will put some type of rhythm to something. So yeah, it's quite interesting. You hear music and you're already moving to that beat.
That's funny because recently I went to my girlfriend's birthday party and I wasn't feeling 100%, but I said I'll stay for an hour. But once that music came on,
it's like the switch went on, right?
It was 12 o'clock. So they're like, of course, because it's in my blood to dance, but that's with all of us. And we're Hispanic and Latin. We love music. And
it's kind of like a form of expression as well.
It is a form of expression.
Yeah, and it's so beautifully done.
Yes.
That some, they're not. And what's funny is if someone takes a ballroom dance lesson for salsa or a bachata or merengue, any of those, polar opposite to the actual real rhythm and culture that comes out of it organically.
And we celebrate within our own families. It doesn't have to be a big party. It doesn't have to be Christmas. It just be. Just pull out the congas, pull out the maracas, and just a little music, and we make it a little fun family activity. It doesn't have to be a holiday. So we're just always happy and celebrating.
That's a good thing.
Which is interesting. She just talked about that. And again, we're going into the season we call planeros. In Puerto Rican, and they go from house to house with all kinds of instruments and just having fun. And I remember back in my days growing up, you get a pot and a spoon and you go to the beat and you have fun with it. So yeah, I think it's just part of who we are.
That's amazing. How can we tell the community to continue to raise awareness for Hispanic Heritage Month? Why is it important, and how do we get that message out to our communities?
I think at the end of the day, it's just maybe breaking down those fears or the unknown. And I think sometimes when people don't know, they put a wall. And I think that the more we can, obviously we have to be cautious about it. I'm going back to the hugging. I have to be cautious not to just quickly hug you. I have to warm up to you or have you warm up so you can understand where that's coming from. And I think it's the same thing with the culture itself. It's not disrespecting America. It's not trying to take over. It's just who we are. And we want to be able to share that. And as well as we want to share, we want to learn from you. And I think it's going to take baby steps. We're there, kind of like to Jackie's point earlier. We're not where we want to be overall, but I think we've definitely much further than we were. And I think that's all it's going to take, just some patience, education, and respecting the boundaries at times, because I think that's important. I want you to learn about me, but I also have to respect your boundaries. How much are you open to learn? And I think if we go about that in that aspect of it, I think the sky's the limit.
I think this month we have a perfect opportunity to celebrate and spread that awareness, and just recognizing our own colleagues and saying, hey, thank you, I appreciate you, thank you for the language skills you bring to this company, or what insights you've done through your culture to make us even more amazing and making the job more meaningful. So just appreciating and thanking our colleagues out this month. And yeah, that's how I think it's a great way.
I've seen a big change over the years where you find more stuff bilingual, so you go for resources, that's always a pet peeve of mine, is make it available for everybody, leave no one out. And more and more things are about it. Do you think it's enough? Do you think there's still more opportunities to have stuff bilingual? Do you think we could improve in that area?
I think the opportunities are always going to be there. And I think we just have, again, to take those baby steps and keep improving.
Do you see a difference from when you were a child?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Well, at least up here, I'll be quite honest, just because, so in South Florida is totally different. That it's a whole different mindset. But coming up here, I've seen the change in the past 12 years, 13 years, where it's being more receptive. To that bilingual concept of it.
I was in Coconut Grove as a child, and I went to Coconut Grove Elementary, and I remember I took Spanish in elementary school, and I remember going by even restaurants in Coconut Grove and throughout Miami, and it said no English. I mean, it's just a different culture altogether. I'm not sure how that is now, but I know it's different.
And to your point about being bilingual, you go to a lot of our Spanish restaurants, they're doing that as well. So they have there, obviously, arroz con habichuela.
That's an outstanding point.
Arroz con habichuela, but right next to it has rice and beans.
Yeah.
So it's not a one-sided thing.
No.
I think it's being able to marriage that. And I know our community is trying to do that as well. Because we want you. We want you to have arroz con habichuela. Yes. But we want you to understand what it is.
Well, you're so proud of your culture.
Yes.
So it's like, please try this. If they came to your personal family's house, they would get the full experience,
Yes.
But you're so proud of it, and I think that's a big part of it, is to try, eat, So that's how it happens. One thing we do to raise awareness during Hispanic Heritage Month is we have our big Latin festival. And this year, with the COVID numbers and the Delta high this summer, we just did not feel comfortable moving forward with plans. So that has been postponed to January 9th. Coming up. So we will still celebrate, give us more reason to celebrate all year long. But I think one thing I've noticed from the Hispanic community is you celebrate when you come together. So whether it's a festival, whether it's an afternoon with drinks and live music, it's through that is where I see a lot of the Hispanic really launching into the community. And no matter whether you're Hispanic or American or whatever nationality you are, if you see somebody who's not Hispanic walk into a Hispanic party, they're immediately, moving their shoulders, and you just start feeling this amazing vibe and culture, and it just really, it kind of consumes you. So I see why you're so proud. You have so many reasons to be proud. Do you eat foods that are indigenous to your culture? Let me ask that question. So that came directly from Puerto Rico. Is there anything in Puerto Rico that is specifically grown for the culture and the cooking?
Wow, so many things have changed, but for example, I think of quenepa, but I think that might be something that's...
And can you share with everybody what quenepa is?
Oh, Lord, that's going to be a difficult one. So I think there is, I think it's called the Chinese, is it fruit or kind of like trees we have I know in DeLand they have them, and it's kind of like yellowish, and you kind of like...
Chinese plums?
The Chinese plum.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Chinese plum,
Okay.
yes. And it's quenepa, and it's one of those things that as a kid always enjoyed. Not sure if it's just from Puerto Rico,
Sure.
but I know it's one of that mindset. Quenepa, you think Puerto Rico. Again, something like mofongo, you think Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But I think as time goes on, and the different areas also have the same thing, but just call it something totally
Sure.
different.
And yuca. Yuca is so important.
Yes.
I thought that was grown pretty much in Puerto
Yes,
Rico. Is that
a lot of
not
yuca,
true? Yeah,
yes.
I thought there was a lot of
Yeah, yuca, bacalao.
Bacalao.
Again, coffee grinds,
Yeah.
things like that. So there's just a lot that I don't know at this point we've evolved so much that we can literally say, well, this just belongs to
Sure.
Puerto Rico. And I think that's part of the beauty of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about you?
So since he's talked about Puerto Rico, which is
Let's talk-
part of my half,
Peru.
talk the other half, yeah. Peru. So Peru they eat a lot of potato, and there's a lot of potato dishes that I grew up eating, and I can't name them all right now, but they were all super yummy and delicious. I think one of them is papa la huancaína, but I couldn't even tell you how it's made. I just know it tastes good. So that was huge. I ate a lot of potato and everything, potato and soup, potato dishes. What else did they do? My mom made a special drink, which I don't know what it's called, but it was made out of like a purple corn from Peru. Yes. So I think I need to go back to the foods and asking her what these dishes are.
And if I can add, as you're saying that, I'm thinking as a Dominican culture, mango. So mango is very popular for Dominicans, and you can have that breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's quite interesting. Mango is just kind of, again, smashed plantains, but they have that with everything. So that's something that I think of mango, I think of the Dominicans, because that's something, again, that they eat all the time.
Yeah, that's neat. How can others celebrate in our community?
Well, I just think by, like I said, thanking or recognizing the Hispanic neighbor or coworker, just thanking them for what they bring to the community, all that richness that they add, all that color, that flavor. And
I think that's a great point. I think be thankful and, you know, and tell people you appreciate them.
Definitely.
And we appreciate your culture, and I think that does make a difference.
It does. That goes into
And I'll add to that, I had the opportunity to present a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. You know, and sometimes we're thinking of the high levels, but we have so many folks in all different levels that I had the opportunity to introduce one of our principals, who now is a director in the school system, Dr. Cristina Raimundo, Puerto Rican from New York.
I Latina nominee last year too.
That's absolutely a veteran. She is a Marine, but I think it's just, again, having those opportunities to say thank you, because there's just so many folks who've been involved in this, and too many times I think we get caught up in what we see, but we don't realize it. I'm very blessed and thankful for everyone who's made it possible for me to have the opportunities that I have, and I think it's always not forgetting that, not forgetting where you come from, and that doesn't mean, you know, you can't move on, but it's always knowing where that foundation is set for, because when you have a foundation, and I want to thank my parents for building that foundation, my friends and the folks around me to be able to help me to stand where I'm at today and represent. But it's important that when we get there, that we don't forget the people that help us to get there.
And you know, in our conversations and in many conversations, the Hispanic community, there is such a high level of respect and admiration for our elders.
Yes.
Where does that come from? I know in my family it's that way. You know, it's like they're the king and queen. You know, your grandparents are, and then as your parents get older, that happens. And I know we were clearly brought up that way to have that same level of respect.
It's just the culture of caring, and we just pass that on and pass that on, and care for our own parents, our own grandparents, and go that extra way to make sure they're the king and queen. Yeah.
And I think it's that form of respect. I remember as a kid, there's that word usted and tú.
Right.
God forbid, I don't care if they're a family, you don't say tú. That's disrespectful. And I'm like, but Mom, but no, you say usted. And again, it's just that form of respect. Not that they're any better or whatnot, but again, it's giving them their place. And I know growing up, that was something that was important. To be able to look at my elders in the family and respect them, and know the wisdom and what they bring to the table and what I can learn from them.
Yeah, I know we grew up, all of our aunts and uncles were Theo and Thea, and you kissed everybody, yes. Theo, Thea, no matter what. I mean, that's just how you roll, you know, in the culture, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing. And what I enjoyed the most was the stories, you know, talking to my grandparents and the stories. And I would love to have my ear in that Domino's. I mean, I just have to go just to listen. But I can't imagine the stories that they tell just playing dominoes. Yes. Is it West Corral they play those?
Yes, West Corral.
Just hearing those stories, I bet, are amazing. But do you remember stories as a child, hearing them from your grandparents?
My grandmother told me so many stories, yeah. Sometimes the same ones over and over. But
And what would your life lesson be?
Yes.
From your grandmother?
She was a very passionate lady, and she was very adventurous. And yeah, I mean, I heard stories about her going through the canoes in the Amazon River in Peru, you know. So this is my maternal grandmother, yeah. And she just took those risks, and so I think she taught me to be brave, you know, and not be afraid. So that's what I take from her.
That's awesome. Anything from your grandparents that you would take and say
from my grandparents
has carried with you?
There is so much, but one of the things that really has always carried with me is a phrase that my dad would always use with me. My dad didn't speak much, but he knew when I was feeling a certain way, and he would just always say to me, "Hijo, no es fácil, pero se puede." Son, it's not easy, but it can get done. And to me, that's always it's been instilled in me. We have challenges. Our community has challenges. Let's not hide that. But that doesn't mean that we can't be successful. And to me, that was him telling me, hey, You know, there's obstacles, but you can overcome those obstacles. So to me, it's quite interesting when I'm feeling a certain way or there's a challenge or I see certain things that I'm saying, why? I say, well, it's not easy, but it can be done. And I think overall for our culture, it hasn't been easy, but it can be done. And that's what, to me, I have real close to my heart, those phrases. Hijo no es fácil, pero se puede.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you both for being here. I think this was great. I think it's amazing. Embrace your culture, embrace your community, embrace the Hispanic culture. There's so much to gain from learning from others. And that's the big thing is I think all of our cultures together, there's so much to learn from. We have a big celebration we're planning coming up at the center as well. And Vitas is doing a special Hispanic Heritage celebration with the Volusia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And you want to share that with everyone?
Sure. We're very excited. The date will be October 15th at 5 p.m. And we are looking to celebrate and close out Hispanic Heritage Celebration Month. So we're very excited about that. There's going to be food and also some entertainment. We can take a little salsa class while we're there. We'll be having Daytona Salsa join us for that. So I'm very excited about that. And what a nice way to wrap up this wonderful month of Hispanic Celebration Month, right?
And is it open to the public? Is it something that they need to RSVP for?
Yes, please RSVP. And how do I get my information?
They can check the Hispanic Chamber website.
Okay. All right. So check that site and then RSVP, please.
Yes, and we'll post the date too with the video.
Yeah, we would love to have many people support and be part of this event. So far, we have Joe Hearn's events. The Hispanic Chamber is in this with us, and Pay It Forward has joined in the celebration as well. So last year we had it at Chica's, and it was a very successful, very beautiful. You were there, Victor.
Yes,
It was a nice party. You were there too.
Centerpieces and high tops.
Yes, it was very, very lovely and very nice time. So this time we're doing it outdoors and under a beautiful pergola at the center of Deltona. So be very excited to see you out there. So we can.
You've been very cautious how you plan this, and I think that's very, very smart. Not knowing, the challenge has been planning things during a pandemic, knowing if you're going to be okay. So some of the decisions we've had to pivot, and I think you did a great job with that.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate your support. It's always Hispanic Chamber is amazing.
Yeah, and Jackie is also one of our past Latina nominees, and she is phenomenal. That's an event that's coming up here in November, on November 19th. The nominations are coming in, so please go to the website, vote for your favorite Latina, and let's have another great party. Victor, you were there last year, so you know how much fun
Absolutely.
the event is.
To me, it's a great opportunity to highlight the ladies in our community and in our culture. Absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
And it's all over Volusia County. So if you know somebody, a family member, if you're at home listening, nominate them. Go to Volusia Hispanic Chamber.org, actually volusiachamber.org, and you can find the link right there to nominate. So celebrate Hispanic heritage, celebrate with these amazing women, and please stay tuned for our Latin Festival, which is coming up in January, with our Three Kings Festival, which is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you,
I'm ready to go eat and get some cafe con leche and go dancing and do all of that right now. I know. If we all didn't have to go back to work is the question. But thank you so much. The Hispanic Chamber thanks you for all that you do for our communities, for coming today just to share your culture. I think it's important. The more we can get the messaging out, the more that our community can learn about it, the more they can embrace it. Definitely. So this year our theme for iLatina is Mardi Gras, and it's Unmask Your Potential. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a second line, live band, lots of fun things happening. Of course, it'll be at the beautiful center at Deltona. So please stay engaged to the Hispanic Chamber website, follow us on social media, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.